Hello, and welcome to this special edition of Terminus. I am the black metal guy. The death metal guy is assembling a Gundam out of ATVs and jet skis. And I am here with Kari and Jaako from Sepulchral Curse. So if you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and how you properly say your names and saying what you do in the band.
Greetings, my name is Kari and I am the vocalist in Sepulchral Curse.
Hey people, I'm Jaakko and I'm a fledgling guitar player in Sepulchral Curse.
A fledgling guitar player? Does that mean you're a...
I'm
what do you mean by fledgling?
Novice. I'm like a 20-year novice.
All right, very good. A 20-year novice. So, aside from that, I guess, Kari, do you want to walk us through the rest of the lineup of the band? And then,
Sure. Besides me and Jaakko, our drummer is Tommi, and the bass player is Niilas. They are, the other two original members of the band. And 2 years after we put the band together, we desperately needed another guitar player to, make the lineup a bit better. So Alexi joined the ranks, and, that is history for us.
Nice. So how did this project get started? I think you've referred to your drummer, Tommi, as sort of the lyricist, composer, and visionary.
The band started actually by me and Jaakko. I was already back in 2013 in singing in Solothus, but I wanted something faster, and Jaakko didn't have a death metal band around that time, so it was just like our mutual friendship, and we kind of wanted to get more into playing some, old school raw death metal. And then, Jaakko used to play in this death metal band called Death Hera with Tommi, and Niilas was a long time friend of the both. So we kind of like, it's a band build up of, friends. But like, even though the first demo, it's all the lyrics are written by me and all the music is made by Jaakko, Tommi has kind of like stepped up. I think when we formed Sepulchral Curse, Tommi was more of like, well, I'm just gonna play the drums, but then he started to get more inspiration and material that fit Sepulchral Curse, and he started to writing songs too for the band. And since he's a really crazy good lyricist, like with very very deep philosophical take on matters. So naturally I decided to step down. I can fulfill myself in Solothus when it comes to lyrics. So I wanted him to take the lyrical side from me. And since he has the lyrics and so from that we get the so to say like the imagery also. So it is he has kind of like raised himself, to be just more than just the drummer, so to say.
I like that. More than just a drummer. So, Jaakko, then, as the founding guitarist, then how does your guitar collaborate? Because I assume that Tommi is writing his contributions on guitar. How do your contributions fit together? Do you write separate songs, or do you work on songs together? You could maybe give an example off of Only Ashes Remain. Like, is there like a Jaakko song or a Tommi song or some specific song where both of those sort of come together?
Initially, when we formed the band, me and Kari and asked Tommi to join in as a drummer, we kind of had like Kari said, the drive to play raw, early type of death metal, and Kari wrote the lyrics for the first EP and I wrote all the songs, and after that one was done, we basically fulfilled the initial quota for the whole band, and after that it became a bit of a different thing and sort of progressed into a different type of beast, especially when Tommy started writing and Alexi joined in on the other guitar. On this, our debut album, Only Ashes Remain, I actually took the lull on that one as far as songwriting goes, and the whole album is written by Tommy and Alexi. And well, we always, well, at least up till this point, publicly, we've written songs separately. Tommy does the lyrics and they hone it in with Kari. But the separate individual arrangements themselves are done pretty much in group, and we just try out different variations in certain details within separate songs and just try to see which sticks basically. And well, we're currently writing new material in heaps, and we are trying like co-writing songs. I am doing a number with Alexi, and we are currently sort of panning out one track with Tommy at the moment, but we are still pretty new to that whole co-writing process with this band, so we're just taking our time honing the skills and the whole process.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like that idea of sort of solidifying the arrangements as a full band by actually playing them together. So then, how exactly would you describe the change in sound from sort of raw old school death metal after Tommy joined the band? Because as far as I can tell, there's a pretty similar sound between At the Onset of Extinction and Only Ashes Remain. At the Onset is your 2016 EP. And I assume the change happened kind of between A Birth in Death and At the Onset. How would you describe that shift? I've heard people, people often throw around, Finnish death metal, demigod, whatever, things like that. And, it doesn't, I hear the connection, but it doesn't really sound like a Dramelech to me, right? So what's the kind of change?
Yeah, in the when you made the review, or so to say, about our album, I think you hit the nail there. Like, when you think about Finnish death metal, there's not just like one sound to it. It's a myriad of different sounding death metal bands. If you're really trying to look, something that combines many death metal bands from Finland, it's kind of like this darkness, or like, being a bit weird or fucked up, like having really weird things combined to the sound. I think those are like aspects that some Finnish death metal bands have in common. But I don't know if we're, that basic or average Finnish death metal band, and not at least to my in my mind, because in our sound, like on the A Birth in Death, it's like raw, pretty basic death metal, but at the onset of Extinction, one song is made by Jaakko, two songs are made by Tommy, and one song is made by Alexi. And I don't think people can really hear what song is made by whom. So even though that there are four composers, the overall red line that the band has, it's surprisingly tight. So in my opinion, the biggest change between the first and second EP is that, of course, more composers, but there is more black metal sound to my death metal ears. Like, there's more black metal, maybe more thrash metal, and even like, I don't know, Iron Maiden style things, and certain aspect of like chaos, or even being progressive when you think about Only Ashes Remain album. I think there are some things that Tommy has written for the band which are really really complex, and you wouldn't find maybe on an 90s death metal album from Finland. So maybe that is my my opinion what has been changing between the band. Of course, I think you can hear that it's the same band on all records, but there's like more layers put to the original idea of the band, like more meat to the bones. I think Jaakko can, might have something to say to this too.
Ah, yes, the ever nebulous term of Finnish death metal. Yeah, it's the like previously mentioned. It's yeah, it's. I think it's like you discussed on your review. It may come down to a certain feeling of sorts, since under the umbrella of Finnish death metal, there are so many different types of sounds, like a Dramalek, like Stench of Decay, Slogathor. They are like bands that basically do heavy, reverberated, slow chugging caveman death metal, and then there are bands who just basically strip bolt thrower early sound to the bone and just roll with that, and it all comes together somehow. But the our original sound with the A Birth in Death EP was basically me just trying to bundle together like some punkier aspects of Dark Throne, the later one, weirdly enough, because me and Kari were heavily into that at some point. And then it was like basically a hodgepodge of non-slaughter and Swedish death metal. And when I've heard some comments of people saying there are some like the band Victims type of more punk-driven aspects, but well, the Swedish early death metal scene is pretty heavily influenced by punk, so it fits. But I think the even though I was absent on the writing aspect of Only Ashes Remain, there are like throughout the collective perfecting of the songs and trying out different variations of certain details, as Kari nicely put it, there's a pretty consistent red line running throughout the whole album, and you might not really be able to, at least at this point of our band's career, like pinpoint which song is made by whom. And but we do have certain characteristics that, as well, we ourselves are pretty aware. Well, for example, Alexi usually does with the face ripping, pretty straightforward death metal blasts with those witching old classic Slayer harmony type of stuff. Tommy does pretty much everything in the book, from these spiraling blasts of nebulous energy to massive epics, and well, I try to just hold back my power metal influences and not go noodly on everything, and just try to keep a pretty interesting approach, at least from a guitar player's perspective. But I usually just try to envision a song like let's do it like Autopsy meets Sulphur Aeon or something like that. But the yeah, I think we fit into the mold of, well, so to say, mold of Finnish death metal. But I think, at least I'd like to think that we are one of those bands that have our own unique take on it, whatever the textbook definition of Finnish death metal may be.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. It sounds, it's, you know, a way I was thinking about it was like, if you, there's so much that goes into the between all three of you guys writing and all of your influences and all of the different things that you each listen to. There's so much going into this band that in some sense you could just describe it as sounding like Scandinavian death metal. And then, you know, you go, which and then you can start breaking it down to, oh, this sounds like this and this sounds like that and whatever. And as soon as you do that, you can learn really cool things about all the stuff you guys like, but it's sort of like it's sort of missing the point, because I think you guys have achieved something fairly original on this in terms of being a band that comes 40 years or 30 years after the beginning and is so rooted in that old stuff but sounds new. One thing that maybe sets you apart then, it's interesting that you said you started with kind of like dark throny stuff, so you've started really sort of punk black death stuff and moved more towards this melodic sound. Do you guys have anything to say about, say, a couple of these really grinding, intense songs like Swarming Blackness and Church of Loss? I'm particularly curious about one of your trademark things, which is you've got these kind of, as you said, kind of D-beat parts that are really push the tempo, and then somebody does backing vocals that are just these disgusting grind shrieks, which is like, I think, one of your trademarks.
Yeah, well, those screaming vocals, they are our drummer Tommy. I knew he was a good singer. Like, he has this black metal band called Gumbantine where he sings. So I like demanded that he will do vocals to on Sepulchral Curse. So that's pretty much why why we added those, and I think it's a good works very, very well with my lower vocals, so it gives like a different kind of a feeling to the songs. About the faster songs, Church of Loss, I remember that it's written by Alexi, and he's really into stuff like Dead Congregation and Vatane. So I guess it comes from that. But our drummer Tommy, he composes the drums pretty much, himself. And I know he has like, hardcore and grindcore and stuff like that background. He likes that kind of music too. So I'm pretty sure that, those D-beat and influences really come from there.
Yeah, and it's personally, when it comes to Tommy, it's like when I write my own songs for the band, it's I leave the drums pretty like rudimentary, basic, just almost like fill in your own drum takes type of deal that basically just outlines which is the fast part, which is the more somber, slower one, and then Tommy takes it from there. And I haven't been disappointed ever in his contributions, even though we've played in the same band for the first time like 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's cool. Leaving that kind of freedom. So I guess for Kari, a similar question, like how so Jaakko is saying he leaves room for the drums to fill in. Kari, what's the vocal writing process like? Because how much when Tommy writes them, does he write them to the music? They do really read, some of these really read like poetry. I might just read a couple of these, a couple of the coolest parts for our listeners. But we've got from Eyes Inside, which is my favorite track, aside from the epic last one. We've got, on the third hour of the crimson moon, thoughts broke through the temple of my skull, writhing in the air like parasitic worms, taking new forms as pictures and colors. Is the body able to follow the soul, running inside solid matter? Are my bones able to withstand the pressure when I'm swimming below ocean's floors? From the bloodied crescent descended an old crow, and with a faint voice it whispered into my ear. Inside the heart of darkness remains a spider-web-like maze of a dead god, and in its core lies the ninth sight, where now must your dreams reside. At the break of the blazing dawn, I devoured 11 arteries and their rotting blood. Now my body is able to run in substances, to follow the wandering soul. Now my bones won't shatter under the weight of waters. On the steps to the mass graves of worlds, I saw the space to tear itself apart, and in the blistering light of celestial eye, I was blessed with the absence of rationality. So to me, that reads like you could just read those off like a poem that has kind of its own internal rhythmic structures to it. Do you sort of work with him to then fit those rhythms around the songs, or how does it work?
Yeah, well, I think that this is a good time to say like Tommy is, in my opinion, one of the best lyricists who I know. So it was easy decision to step down because like his lyrics are they're crazy good, and so much depth, and all the he reads a lot of stuff. So like his heart is very close to like Nordic and Finnish mythology, but he has his own take on it. Like I think he sometimes called it like he's inspired by the night side of Edda and Scandinavian mythology, and like you can really tell from the lyrics that he has actually thought this stuff through, at least in my opinion. But yeah, about the composing the vocals. At first, when we did the first EP, Tommy wrote like tons of lyrics, like way too fucking much stuff for me to sing, because my way of singing is very slow. So first when we started doing this, like he wrote the lyrics and I sang them, I just and in studio I told him like, yeah, I can't do this, and we need to put this into say this with fewer words and stuff like that. And when we did Only Ashes Remain, I think that there was only like one or two words we needed to drop. So I have pretty much I decide myself what I sing where and how I do it. But on Only Ashes, it was more like me and Tommy were thinking about them together and pretty much agreeing all the time. But his lyrics, he has been able to write lyrics which I can sing in my style on the get-go. Like he knows how much he can write into one verse and one chorus and stuff like that. So it might sound like really unbelievable, but there actually was very few words that we needed to drop from Only Ashes Remain, because he already knew like how much he can write, and so he pushed what he has to say into that line. So like I think that's kind of a phenomenal thing, a feat to do. You have your way of writing, but you have like this small space to do it. Yet he can do like crazy good lyrics even with this kind of limitations.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's real value to condensation in art in general, to like concentrating things, and that kind of punk economy, but also, and especially in poetry, like being able to say more with less. That's pretty cool, and it's cool that the sort of creativity within. It sounds like the creativity within constraints has been generative for you guys. I mean, it's remarkable the lack of ego in this band. It sounds like you all know how each other work, and like when he writes things, he knows that you have this super deep guttural, which somebody literally like can't do fast. Or would be absurd. He knows how you sing. You kind of know how he writes. Jaakko has a feel for how all the other guitarists write. It leaves rooms for the drums. It sounds like you all are like, maybe through your various bands and collaborations, it sounds like you all are good friends in some way. Is this a hang out together, go drinking on the weekends kind of band, or is it just some sort of extremely highly developed long-term collaboration? Let's go to Jaakko first, since Kari just went.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a long time friendship type of deal. It's me and Kari have known each other for like approximately 10 years now as good friends. Me, Tommi, we go back 15 years. Almost the same as with me and Niilas. Aleksi is the new recruit, so to say, but he quickly became a good friend of ours as well. So it's not as much with the party on the weekend side, since we are old as boomers now, but we do like and enjoy our company outside of the rehearsal rooms and the gig circuit. So it's a type of deal where you know the people you're playing and creating music with, and you come to know the other person's style traits and strong points, and you kind of learn to focus and adjust to those more and more, and that whole process makes your own songwriting work as a whole much better.
Yeah, Jaakko put it pretty well, but some folks have told me like you can actually see from how our band works that we are like a lot more than just band. Like we are pretty close friends, and you know, of course, I think about my bandmates as brothers pretty much. Like we chat a lot online, and we have like this own very stupid sense of humor inside the band, which of course ties the group a bit better together. But yeah, I think Jaakko put it pretty well. Like it's a really tight group as a band, somewhat tighter than other bands I know. But you know, I guess that's our secret. Aleksi I have already known for I think over 10 years. Like that's where I knew Aleksi to and asked him to join our band.
Word. Yeah, it's certainly like a band in the old sense of the word. On Terminus, we've been harping on this a lot lately about how people don't have bands anymore. It's so easy to have a one-man project or just write all the parts yourself and then like call a guy who plays drums that you know. And then that's conducive to a certain kind of auteur approach, like someone like somebody like Serpent Column or something can make an outfit like that work wonders because it's this outlet for total control. But you guys are more open in how you do things, and it's just a completely different creative approach from the people cranking out one-man projects that just sort of roll down the line on one sound. So where to go from here? I mean, so a couple other songs that are, I think, maybe characteristic or striking on the record to me are, I just talked about the lyrics for Eyes Inside, but that and Dead Stars Drawing Spirals have these gorgeous melodic parts, and kind of elaborate arrangements. These songs sort of feel a lot longer than they are in a good way because so much happens. Any particular thoughts on the composition process for these, or how they emerged?
I guess the the boring answer would be like Tommi just forwarded us with the song that he had in mind, and I don't know if he had other words to say. Like sometimes he comes up with the song and he said, I don't know if this fits for Sepulchral Curse music. And after we listen to it, like it does. After we played and I sing it, it definitely sounds more death metal than sometimes he has songs that are a bit more black metal. So, but usually those songs, they still work pretty well as our songs, at least how they turn out. But since he's really into more melodic stuff too, like I don't know, primordial or stuff like that. So I think that you can really hear in his compositions too. I think Jaakko might have a better answer for this.
Well, what's there to add? It's every one of us appreciates and enjoys melody, and I think that collectively we agree that even in dark and brutal and brooding music, there's always a slight place for even the tiniest hint of melody in there, even if it's a pretty subtle one or something like more in your face, as with the last outro parts of Dead Stars. But it always depends on the individual mood and the inspiration behind each individual track in the work. So it's kind of even hard to even describe my own composing methods with that. It's a feel kind of thing. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that makes sense. Let me see if I can get a little more specific. That wasn't much of a question. That was pretty much just being like, hi, what are your thoughts on that? So here's a question. You, Jaakko, you talked about sort of repressing your power metal influences, which is very funny, but we actually just reviewed a really great Czech band that is kind of like a pagan black metal band, but there's tons of power metal in it, and it does great things for their guitar. But so for you, or when you guys are working together as a band to arrange these, is there an art? How do you? I think something that Sepulchral Curse does really well is incorporate highly melodic passages without making them sound like Gothenburg death metal, which, as we all know, sounds kind of like power metal. How do you kind of there's some integrate the melodic parts seem really built into the rest of the more dissonant or abrasive parts of the music. I don't know. I don't know if that would give you more purchase on answering it, but like how do you find that balance, say, or weaving them together? And I guess maybe this is a question for Jaakko first.
Yeah, it's a fine line between, let's say, just pure cheese and just as a result, well integrated melodic passage in a song. The whole like Gothenburg death metal style is usually pretty well divided between like the rhythm guitar doing long open chords or subtle just tremolo riffing, and there's a huge screaming harmonic melody lead on top of that. But I think at least our recipe for success for writing like effective melodic part in a song or multiple in chain or in tandem is that the rhythm guitar parts have to lay down the foundation and kind of hold the door open for the actual melodic passage, and the actual melody itself, it kind of has to sort of dig deep into the framework of the bass line, drums, and everything that's going like before it, and not kind of go all solo and high flying and just shoot up through the stratosphere in terms of like context. It's like it doesn't have to be a solo part in disguise unless it's written to be that way. But for example, in Swarming Blackness, towards the end, there's the one slower melodic part which begins with some long chords and picked out melodic passages, and then it's harmonized, and it's melodic times two, basically. And I really don't think that in my head that it's a separate like lead part in itself. I consider it to be a part of the main riff work, even though there's almost like a kind of neoclassical type of things going around. But the as far as composing those type of parts and ideas and fiddling around with them, it's a fine line that is being more or less dictated by the original inspiration behind the individual songs that demands the actual notation, the melodies and the riff works to kind of fit into the context, which might be so abstract that it's even hard to even like on a good day to kind of put down on paper or Guitar Pro notations or whatever. But I think one of our major strong points is that we can kind of mooch off of our own individual strong points and kind of borrow our from our individual stylings and fit them like a pre-arrangement phase into our own individually written songs and make it sound more as a like product of the whole band. If you catch my drift, I'm rambling. Sorry, let's move on.
Yeah, I think Jaakko put it really well. That that's a really strong aspect of the band. That we're not afraid to use melodies, but luckily we have a good taste on how we use said melodies in the song, so they really sound like actual parts of it and not just like taking some more cheesier parts from some other music style that influences us or something, and then slap it into a song. That they really are part of the song and not just a seasoning to make them more something. I don't know.
No, I think I think those were great answers. Jaakko, that wasn't rambling. That was the sort of detailed Terminus content that we need and love. And so to sort of just reply to that, or to highlight some of it for the listeners, it's like so you give a lot more importance to the seemingly unassuming things like the rhythm guitar, and you have a way I think of it sometimes I've in my own clumsy way tried to write some, let's say just writing primitive black metal stuff or whatever. It's like you write for two guitars and they're both doing the riffs at the same time. And I've heard other people, a guy Dressed in Streams does that really well. But it sounds like, so you guys, everything is the riff at once. The rhythm guitar is the riff, the lead is the riff, and as opposed to a band that might just sort of front loads the melody without having that sort of heavier part behind it interacting with it. And another thing I thought was really interesting about what you said is incorporating each other's voices into your own writing. It seems like, ideas are passing back and forth between people very, very quickly and in a way that's really neat. I suppose now to shift away from that, or to do a more vocal variant on that take, I was thinking for Kari, so you're the vocalist in Solothus, which I think in our first review I described for people as extremely bad vibes death doom. Sort of long, lingering chords, some chug, which is good, chug to keep it moving, but lots of, dissonant, lingering chords, crashing entries of new parts. How does writing for that, how does coming from that sort of slow and low background affect what you do with this band that in some ways moves very fast and very high?
Yeah, it was when the songs became more progressive and fast and varied. Of course, it's like it was its own hassle for me because the way I sing is very very slow. I use a lot of power, a lot of air to make my growl, so I'm not able to do really fast things when I'm going in very low register. Of course, I can do higher stuff and screaming too, but I prefer doing the very low vocals. That works for my ear. I have heard a lot of, well, not a lot, but some criticism that my vocals are too low for Sepulchral Curse. But then again, in my mind, it would be a bit more boring if we took the more traditional way of making this kind of death metal. I think if I was doing, higher vocals, it would be more dull and more a bit too basic. So I stick to my own way. From time to time, it is hard to try to get as many words into one sentence as it is written, but it works pretty well, and I think the newer songs work even better for my vocal delivery. So I'm pretty happy happy how it works. With Solothus, it's my first band, and it's the way I learned to sing. So for me, Solothus is a very natural way of me expressing myself through my vocals. So with Sepulchral Curse, I'm pushing myself to different boundaries, and they kind of feed each other. Like when we have faster things in Solothus, it's well, the experience I have gotten in Sepulchral Curse works really well in that too. So both bands kind of work together for me.
Word. That, yeah. So, I mean, the people who say your vocals are too low for this are completely wrong. That's one of the distinguishing characters of it, I think. It's on the show, we talked a lot about how right now it's like death metal for the last maybe 15 years has had a hard time defining itself against black metal. Like, kind of in a lot of ways, whether you're talking about the super avant-garde kind of ulcerati stuff or the sort of cavern core stuff, or it all kind of gets absorbed into the black metal sphere. Or then you've got this kind of, I guess what people want you to sound like is like a kind of punky Swedeath thing, which is kind of stagnant at the moment. And so the low vocals, I think, really, it's like, what is death metal? Well, death metal, low vocals, crushing. And it's cool because you kind of get a different sense of time, too. Like the idea that you're used to slow stuff and you're interacting with this band that plays really fast is, tension can be good. Kind of like what Jaakko was saying about the rhythm guitars interacting in a really substantial way with the leads. It's, I guess, in relation to that, then, what do you guys think the difference between black and death metal is? Let's go to Jaakko first. It's a hard question, but so we can always come back to it after at the end. But it's also one of those things. Like every time I meet someone who's like kind of a smart normie who is being interested in my bizarre and alienating passions, they ask me, "What's the difference between black and death metal?" And I'm like, "Shit, how do I explain this without sounding like a total autist?" Yeah, Jaakko, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty complex question to answer in a an abbreviated way without sounding a total tool, but I think
Dude, sound like a total tool. Go for it.
all right, I have granted access to total tooldom. It's I think like you said, it's like there are different well-established aspects in death metal that have kind of stagnated or kind of fallen or dug in actively into certain niches or even ditches, like the Swedish death metal sound is I think the like the revival movement all across the globe with the HM2 chainsaw sound, which I personally never can get enough. I love that aesthetic, but it really is almost at worst a bit gimmicky, I think. Even though as much as I love it, it's almost always like the you have the tremolo riffs that go along the lines of classic Dismember and Grave and Entombed type of lines, and then there are always those like a typical, if I had to, like, somebody came up to me when I was noodling around with my guitar, it's like, hey dude, pull off a Swedish death metal song right now with a gun pointed to my temples. It's like I'd go for a D beat, drum beat, like 180 BPM, and just go for like a low tremolo riff, two-step tuned down with the tuning, of course, and then after that one, a couple of passages, it was like long chords, like the basic Iron Maiden chord structure, and then just go for this harmonic leads, and then one verse and pre-chorus with something about zombies and whatever, and then there's this a bit more like a punchier chorus with a more melodic type of riffage, and that's basically what you hear in most of those Swedeath type of stuff. But it's an aesthetic and it has its audience and it's awesome, but there are like these global almost sects of death metal that have their own type of thing. Like traditionally it's like British death metal being more like hardcore punkier type of blasts of energy, and like this like the old early earache bands. It's like the whole benediction bolt thrower type of deal. There's the Swedish sound which I described. The American death metal sound is a bit more abstract. It's there's this the different subgenres of the early death metal stuff, which is more akin to thrash metal in a sense, like the like Seven Churches by Possessed. I think it's tonally it's more like a blackened thrash record, but it's in such an early stage of death metal history, so it's kind of a moot argument. But anyway, it's the early death metal type of stuff until like the dawn of the 90s was much more straightforward, and after that it kind of breaks off into several entities of like brutal death metal, the New York slam scene with Suffocation, and the like technical death metal like Brain Drill Origin, and they all these different subgenres have their own quirks and aesthetics when it comes to songwriting, lyrics, artwork, and the whole deal. And while black metal has some of the same aspects, it's like, you know, as a phenomenon, it's globally there are different scenes that have their own characteristics. Like you could just pull up some American black metal. There are different like subgenres there, like black witcheries, loads like apart from I think what is called the Cascadian scene, like with the albums of heavy reverb, burst chirping, and all the albums having basically like woodland shots in the album covers. And then there's like South American black metal, which is a pretty like well closer to the bestial black metal, war metal type of stuff originating that. And then there's the Scandinavian stuff. But the it's hard to say. I think in both like main genres and styles there are loads of different avenues of expression with their own characteristics that define the genre, but if you kind of have to push the envelope and come closer to the fold of or the dividing factor between black and death metal, I think it's pretty hard to define where the proverbial transition would occur. Well, the easy answer would be within the actual visual aesthetics or the lyrics or the message or what have you, but even that has some major overlap. So it's I think it's a question of many different aspects of artistry. It's a visual thing, it's a lyrical thing, and a songwriting thing. I think that's my unholy tooldom take after working night shifts I can muster from the bottom of my brain.
I think that was a good take. Yeah. So it seems like you see things in terms of more of these like regional scenes with a shared history rather than it being easy to define any one unified sound. Kari, what would you say?
Yeah, Jaakko had a long ass answer for that. Mine is a lot shorter when it comes to describing the differences between death and black metal. I would say if it's more down-tuned and the vocals are growled and it's about things related to death, it's death metal. If it's, more higher, more, screeching, and it has a more philosophical or, satanic touch, then it's black metal. So basically you could say if it sounds good, it's probably death metal.
Nice. So you would say, you would describe maybe Sepulchral Curse as a band that draws influences from black metal but makes them sound good?
Yeah, probably I would say that. There are black metal that I do enjoy, but, it's, 99% of the music I listen to is not black metal.
Yeah, so I think that's probably important in terms of keeping the distinctive character of your band is like there are all these other death metal bands getting carried away by black metal and using it for this kind of novelty thing. Like Jaakko said, he was talking about the songwriting, like, oh, we'll just drop in some super melodic black metal part here or whatever. Sepulchral Curse is interesting because it's willing to draw on these ideas, but they always tie back to a death metal framework somehow. It always sounds like death metal. Although as a black metal guy, I'm certainly able to relate to it more than, sure, your average zombies and gore thing. Well, let's talk about a song that let's talk about the song that sort of gets the closest to scrambling these lines. It's almost like there's the first six on this record. It's almost like there's the first six songs, which all just work as like one after another. Here's a sick death metal song. Here's a sick death metal song. Here's a sick death metal song. Total refusal to do ambient filler or whatever, which I think is great. And then you just go into Maan Tuhkien Uneen, which is, and you'll have to pronounce it for me, but that's almost like a work of its own. And we were both really struck by that. And it sounds so, that does have like really black metal-y kind of, great Finnish forest, misty mountains kind of Horna vibes. But it also is a death metal song, and it really goes places. I was wondering if you could just tell me how did that come about, and how do you see that as relating to the rest of the record?
Yeah, Maan Tuhkien Uneen, which is how it is pronounced. It translates into like into the sleep of Earth's ashes. It's like Tommy has this way of writing these massive songs. Like on a second EP, the last song is really long. Same is here. He likes to have the last song, kind of tie together the whole album. And I think it's the same thing here. Once again, like get the story to end. What has been going on for two albums lyrically, the story, and it's kind of like what the album cover is about and the album's name is. So it's very important song in that sense, and I think it's like how you said it. It really shows all the things that the band is like, going from slow to fast and really big melodic parts. I think it's funny that you mentioned Horna, because I know that's a one band that Tommy really likes. Of course, this song is written by Tommy, but he's also like a huge fan of Moon Sorrow, and they have this thing of as you probably know, like creating crazy long ass songs with multiple parts. There is, for our second album, there will also be like a song like this, a long song to end it, because I think that's gonna be sort of a trademark thing for us from now on. What the lyrics are about, it's like just about the ending of everything, like how the world has gone to end and there's nothing left. So it's pretty much about that.
Yeah, I was wondering if it sort of started a new storyline or differed from the lyrics before. That makes sense. Yeah, there's definitely a narrative arc to the record. It's kind of like a Lovecraft story in itself or something, with all these kind of Norse and Finnic shamanic influences in it. You can see that Tommy's read about magic and stuff like that. But yeah, so it finishes off the cycle. Does the sound there sort of I was wondering if that song was like composed later and represented some sort of future direction, but it sounds more like you want to keep these as a kind of thing you do at the end of each record. Like, is the next record going to sound more like this, or are you trying to keep this as a kind of thing that you do at the end of the record? It sounds like.
Yeah, well, I think our next album is pretty much like 80% written. There's two songs missing, and one is the one that Tommy and Jaakko are making together, which is going to be like the epic, massive thing. But I think that the way we started on Only Ashes Remain is pretty much what the next album will be like. I think there are parts that are way more technical and even progressive. There is less like more straightforward pummeling, but there is still like we still need two more songs for that album. but I think the songs we now have there are way more. It's more like more into the extremes. There's more like melodic things, but also more like furious, chaotic, fast things too. So I think the path we have started with this album is pretty much what it continues next, but taking a step forward from that. And so if you like the Maan Tuhkien Uneen, I think there is gonna be more of that kind of stuff coming your way.
Yeah, it's the Only Ashes Remain is looking like a blueprint at the moment for our future material concerning the second full-length album, which is well in its way, writing-wise. It's we are taking our individual songwriting styles to a new level, which is a cliche to say, but we are amplifying our own characteristics songwriting-wise, and we are taking it to overlap with our like respective styles. Like me and Tommy writing together, me and Alexi writing together, and just kind of leeching off of each other's strong points to create more stronger, cohesive songs that, like Kari said, are straying away a bit more from the archetypical death metal type of thing to kind of molding our own face in like more specific terms. Is like we are trying to not go through the easy route of doing the ABC steps of a death metal song and just like pummel down some slam riffs and gurgle on top on whatever lyrical topic you can just have, but instead we are just trying to inject our songs with more intricate and, in our own context, more intense and extreme types of melodies, harmonies, and maybe not really atypical riffs, but like more like attention demanding stuff. Not really like technically all that flourishing, but something that keeps it, or hopefully keeps it from degrading into a hodgepodge riff salad of nothing. Just trying to like not to just go on full blast the whole album, but to have more than a couple of highlights within a song. Just trying to remain like a rising intensity as with Maan Tuhkien Uneen, as that song is 11 minutes of ascending intensity throughout the whole narrative arc.